when everyone else is coming in for money and people say, I'm here for the tech, that's where you actually find that ability to stay here for a long period of time, is because you actually do believe in the greater good of what that token or that blockchain may achieve for kind of humanity, right?
NFTs are redefining the cryptocurrency landscape and taking the world by storm. This is Ashley Smith from Fame Lady Squad, and I want to welcome you to From the Blockchain. As leaders of an all-female avatar NFT project, we want to share our insight and industry knowledge with you. We want to empower more women to participate and dominate in the NFT space. So whether you're an early adopter or just a curious learner, we hope you join us to explore the exciting world of NFTs. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to From the Blockchain. This is your girl. I am Becky, also known as Ashley Smith in real life, and I am here with my girl, Cara, also known as Lady C. Lady C, how are you doing today, my friend?
I'm really good, my friend. It's Black History Month. I'm Black. It's awesome. Celebrating and meditating on life, and also doing a show right now. So thinking about like the metaverse and theater, which is what I'm doing. And this episode that you just did with the Hustle House, I was just listening to it before we were shooting this intro, and I thought it was so awesome. You guys touched on some really interesting stuff in terms of the metaverse and IP and Bored Apes, which is also kind of really cool to look back at now in the market that we're in. And did you have any thoughts on that? Like, what was that exploration like?
Yeah, so first I'll say the Hustle host goes by a few names. He's known as like Baron von Hustle. He's also just known as Jason the Ape in this space. That's the name of his ape. He's a friend of mine. He's one of the first friends I made in this space. And I was on his show, The Boring Show, before I got into Fame Lady Squad as a quote unquote leader. But I actually mentioned being a buyer on that early show, which was really fun. So it's neat to kind of see the evolution of all of this stuff and mapping different points in time with our conversations. Anyways, it was a pleasure to have him. He's just a really nice guy. I have met him in real life with his girlfriend several times. And he's just been a big supporter of us at Fame Lady Squad. But he's done a lot of really neat things in this space. I'm a little like hesitant to call him an influencer, but I think if you asked other people, they probably would give him that label just because he's been sort of multifaceted, involved in a number of different things. He's one of these folks that's asked often to be involved in like Twitter spaces and give his thoughts on things. And he's been an advisor. But mostly I was really keen to learn about, his thoughts on IP use, like NFT IP use, especially where you have exclusive commercial rights to go ahead and do some fun stuff. He's obviously spent a lot of time doing that in the sort of Bored Ape realm. But of course, if you're listening, if you own an NFT in a collection where they offer that sort of usage, I think this will be a fun episode for you. And of course, if you're a Fame Lady Squad holder, this should be educational for you as well, because that's the type of use that Fame Lady Squad offers. He's also super into metaverse, in particular when it comes to the Yuga Labs world. So Yuga Labs is the company behind Bored Ape Yacht Club. But he's obviously quite bullish. We always say like do your own research. But I would listen to this show more from the perspective of like, where's the space going? What are collectors thinking about? What are they still excited about during this bear market? He touches on having been around since 2016 and seeing like market cycles and the ups and downs, even emotionally through that process. So I think as we're still in the bear market, we're still in the winter, for those of you who this might be your first experience, which is mine, I think that it's nice to hear what other people have been through and how they came out on the other side. So I'm really pumped for this episode. I think people will like it. Was there anything that stood out to you, Cara, as you were listening that people should be really paying attention to?
A few things did actually, like just seeing, I saw Nike this past week really establish what their IP is. Like they went after a few companies for making like their versions of Nikes. And I've never seen them do that before. And I found that interesting because it felt like they're preparing for what's been cooking in the NFT space. So it was really cool to listen to the podcast with that in mind. And also, as a performer who's always been, I've performed in video games and stuff. And so my focus has always been spatial computing, which is one of the forms of what we like to call metaverse in the space. And I'm also a gamer, so it's interesting to always hear how an investor looks at metaverse, like because I always just
Right.
assume we're all thinking the same thing, but it's actually really good to have these different perspectives because they'll play in the long run in terms of do you want to buy metaverse space or do you want to keep playing in a particular game? And I always love the chat GPT. Those questions are like, and it's also great to utilize that as well because I don't know if you've noticed, but the AI space is exploding and like even how there's now the art or the ability of prompting in a way that is the most fruitful. And I've seen a lot of people talk about like that there's job potential there if you know how to prompt well, and you should start practicing
Yeah.
how to prompt AI. So there's a lot of great stuff happening
Mm.
in that episode. I really enjoyed it.
Cool. That's awesome. That's a reminder, I think, too, is that like practice, practice, practice with some of these things. So you know what? I love talking with you, Cara. I feel like we could have our own a separate episode just with this conversation. I hope everyone enjoys it. I do want to mention a few like current events things that have been happening in this space. And you talk about Nike, which I still say Nike. So just for those of you who wonder, it's Nike. It's Nike. I don't know which is correct, but another another brand name that it was active in this space over the first month of the year was Porsche, and some people might say Porsche. So just to show you that like these big luxury historic iconic brands are entering Web3, really thinking about where their future might be in the space. I can't speak super eloquently on their launch. All I know is that it was a big buzz and that people were probably a bit cynical about it or skeptical. But so far, like they sold out and the values are holding quite high. And I personally think it's funny because my partner in life is not so interested in Web3 nor like just the internet world in general, but he's such a fan of Porsche. So I kind of had this like haha moment for him. Like even Porsche is getting into Web3. But like any thoughts about these big brands getting into the space?
It's proof that we're doing the right thing. If it was just a money
Mm-hmm.
grab, they wouldn't be here and they wouldn't keep executing, and we just keep seeing more of that. And if it's not straight up executing new projects, it's integration. I think we're going to see a lot of projects integrating. I'm mostly excited about when the big video game companies start to, I think like when Minecraft said that they weren't interested in having people build in the space, that hurt a little bit, but you know, these companies have put a lot of money and expertise into what we like to call metaverses. And so I'm excited to see when they start to integrate the space. But overall, I'm so excited. Like, have these big brands still take a chance on the tech, which is also what Jason mentioned so well in the interview. That if you're here for the tech, your long game is going to be a beautiful one, I think.
Yeah, very cool. And speaking of long game, I think if you check out the Porsche website and you go to their like NFT section talking about what their project represents, it's not super clear on what they're planning to do, but it does allude to future opportunities for their holders. So it alludes to things like experiences that you wouldn't be able to buy necessarily. So I'm curious to see what they come up with and if they follow through. So it'll be something interesting to watch. But thinking of things that aren't necessarily fun in the space, Kevin Rose, who's a big player, we've mentioned his name a few times. We talked about him a bit in the January like year in review, the 2022 year in review episodes. He's one of the folks behind Moonbirds. He got majorly scammed.
I saw like the
And
headline, like what
yeah.
like what got hit? Like how bad was it?
His vault. So his vault wallet, which would mean like that's protected by hardware, like a ledger of something like that. It definitely, what I understand was there was some what's the term we like to use when humans are manipulated?
Social
Like social engineering.
social engineering.
Social
Dang.
engineering, but there were some things related to how he was also duped, and some of the ways that scammers are getting more and more clever with like wallet
Yeah.
addresses and different things of that nature. We're not going to dive into that. Maybe we'll put a link in the show notes, like if someone really wants to understand what happened. But he had some major, like big expensive quote unquote blue chip NFTs that were stolen, and like millions of dollars to what I understand. The collection, like all the things related to his project were, in a different account, in a different wallet rather. So nothing of that nature was impacted. But it does remind us about, security, being best practices around how you use your wallets. And one thing I was saying to Cara before we started this recording was that, I'm just as neglectful as others can be sometimes. Like I use my Ledger account many times to like buy things, mostly off OpenSea. Like I very, 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 very rarely connect my Ledger to any other website, which can often lead to problems, phishing websites, etc. And I think that had something to do with this particular incident. But I think that what we're being reminded of is it's best to like not use your ledger at all. Like you basically send things you want to that wallet and then it's protected. And you just leave it there. And then if you want to interact with it later, you kind of like send it out, or are very careful with that. But what I actually I purchased an NFT off OpenSea today, one that I'm excited to talk about soon because it might have some integration into this podcast. But I basically purchased it through a burner wallet. And then what I didn't know or hadn't used yet was through OpenSea, you can make a purchase and automatically forward or send that NFT to a different wallet. So in that purchase, I made it with a burner and automatically sent it to my Ledger Vault account. So I didn't require that extra step of purchasing and then transferring. So for those of you listening who are familiar with like buying in general, if you didn't know that's an option, that is now an option. It probably has been for a little while, but I just wasn't paying attention. So I thought that was just one more thing, that can add to your security measures that you take. It's just really avoiding using that ledger as like as a purchasing or minting account, or I use the word account, but wallet is really the right word, I guess. Yeah, lots of learning. We always need these reminders, and if it can happen to the best of us and the most like affluent, like that have the most to secure, it can happen to anyone. So anyways, we want to get right into the show, but we have a few reminders, I think, for our audience.
Yes. I wrote notes. So we are looking for sponsors. We'd love to like build out the podcast even more. And if you are interested, we will be posting that opportunity in the show notes. So do check that out. We'd always love for you to subscribe, review the podcast, give us some love. And we have an upcoming email newsletter thing coming out. So we'd love for you to subscribe to that as well and join us and be part of the discourse and learn and grow with us and hopefully even build a little bit.
Yeah, we should have some fun updates to share with folks soon. So please do make sure to subscribe to all those things. I should also mention our current sponsor, who is Daz 3D, who we're very thankful for and is helping us make sure to bring this podcast to you every week. If you don't already know, Daz 3D is a leader in Web3 strategy, marketing, and full stack development. The company is partnered with some pretty iconic brands, and I believe have some other big ones coming, which are really exciting. If you're interested in partnering with Daz 3D, make sure to check out their link, which will be in the show notes, daz3d.com. And of course, they also run one of the largest 3D creation platform serving millions of professional recreational artists worldwide. So if you're an artist looking to get into the digital and 3D space, you want to check out their program as well. All right, Cara, that was awesome. We definitely went longer than we meant. That's okay. It was a worthwhile combo. I think it's time to just get right to the main show.
Love it. Let's do it.
I am so excited to be here with my dear friend, Baron Von Hustle, also known as The Hustle House on some social media platforms. A friend of mine who I've met in the space and who I've really had the pleasure of getting to know over the last couple of years. Baron Von Hustle, welcome to From the Blockchain. How are you doing, my friend?
I'm doing amazing. Thank you so much for having me.
I'm so happy to be here with you. As I just mentioned, we've connected, time after time. We have met IRL, but I think the first time we ever really connected was when I was actually on your show, The Boring Show, which was really fun. And that predated my Fame Ladies Squad days and was just me playing in the space, and you welcomed me with open arms as an ape and just as a degen, which I was just learning to be. So thank you for the memories. Now, you've done a lot in this space. You're a content creator, you're an advisor, you've been behind projects, you do a lot of things. I know you're a name that a lot of folks want to talk to when they're launching something. For a variety of reasons. So you've just been really, really busy. My understanding is that you got into the sort of Web3 space far before it was ever called that, and was really, you were doing some educational content in crypto all the way back in 2016, which I just find mind-boggling. So I would love, before we dive into some of the things you're doing today, maybe for our audience, you can give a little context as to like who you are, how you got involved in all of this stuff, and kind of what's kept you in the space to today.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you so much, first off, for having me.
Of course.
I do think back to the first time we engaged for the Boring Show, and it's kind of funny to rewatch that episode. You hear your passion for the Fame Ladies Squad as just the degen before you were even part of that world and that reality. So
Yeah.
kind of fun to capture like lightning in a bottle, history in a sense. It's kind of cool to look back on those moments now that we've been here for a while. But yeah, I've been making content since 2016. I was working at Apple retail, and I was teaching people how to do all these cool things on their devices and make all this content and trading crypto all the way along the time. And I thought, why don't I just do this for myself? So I quit my job and I started my YouTube channel, and I've been full-time crypto NFT, lifestyle pretty much since 2016.
Mm-hmm.
And it's been an amazing ride.
Wow. I'd love to know, before we dive a bit deeper, like, how has that evolution felt for you, going from, say, earlier days of 2016, 17, the winter that would have come back then, to the, new and revitalization, if that's even the right word, just excitement around the space, people starting to, make money again,
Yeah.
and then the hype cycle, and now we're back in this sort of more bearish market. What has that meant for you, and why have you sort of stuck around?
Wow. The most valuable lesson that taught me was that the crypto space is cyclical.
Yeah.
That crash in 2018 was devastating to me, to a point where I thought I was never going to financially recover from it.
Mm-hmm.
But the next bull run far surpassed that reality for me, with a little bit of, research, effort, and persistence, right? Not giving up on where the value is, being the crypto space. When everyone else is coming in for money, and people say, I'm here for the tech, that's where you actually find that ability to stay here for a long period of time, is because you actually do believe in the greater good of what that token or that blockchain may achieve for kind of humanity, right?
Mm-hmm.
When I figured out what a remittance fee was, and how Western Union was like taking so much money from migrants who send money around to their, family back home, that's when I first fell in love with crypto. And that kind of hit my, that emotional part of me as a human, that just makes me realize how how special this tech is, and realizing that I have the privilege of being taught a lot of tech my life, I felt like I needed to explain this to more people who didn't have that same knowledge base I did growing up. So, I mean, literally for the last 7, 8 years now, I've been just teaching people about crypto and NFTs. And the significant difference now from this cycle to last, people have found joy in the NFT world because of art association. I used to say this, when you would trade crypto and you had a good day and you showed it to your friends, that's called bragging. It's no one's like, oh, you made $1,000 today. Great. But if you're like, hey, I supported this artist and I found this amazing photograph and it really touched me. And so I bought it and I supported this artist on their journey. And maybe it grows in value down the line. That hits us differently, just as humans and collectors. So I think that's one of the reasons I've loved staying in this transitional space, is it's not so cold and just number based anymore.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like we could go a variety of ways just from how you've opened up, but I guess, what would you say to people who maybe entered the NFT and crypto world during the bull run and are now experiencing similar things that you may have experienced before in terms of, feeling loss, hardship? Like, do you have advice for those people?
Yes, and I will be completely honest with you, is that it's something that I go through daily, because just being a human and knowing that, like, at one point something you owned was worth so much more and now it's worth so much less, you may feel a certain way about that. But the one thing I would say is, don't look back on your trades. Really, like, once that trade's done, it's done. And don't hold yourself mentally accountable for what that could have made you if you held it, right? Like, I once had 4 Bored Apes, but I gave one away and I traded 2 to other friends. If I would have kept all 4, that would have been a lot more than I had now. And I try not to remember that, because some days you do and you feel quite sick to your stomach,
Yeah. If everyone did the right thing at the right time, no one would have done the right thing.
Exactly. So the biggest takeaway is don't hold yourself so tight to your failures, because there's always going to be other opportunities, right? And you know this from being in this space a bit of time, is there's always another opportunity.
Yeah. And of course, like, on this show, we're not here to give financial advice, but I would love to know, like, your general perspective. As you said, you believe this goes in cycles. So you expect at some point the cycle, we're going to see the other side of this cycle.
I mean, I think we're on the upswing right now.
Yeah.
I've seen a lot of positive momentum, but we are we are living in Yuga's world right now, and they're touching so many heavy hitters in the NFT space that, with the Dookey Dash game and with the lore and stories that they're building out, that's putting a lot of money and excitement into this NFT world right now, and that ripples to the smaller projects.
And so for our audience, I mean, if you've been listening for a little while, you've heard us talk a bit about Yuga Labs, which is the company behind the Bored Ape Yacht Club. That's what Baron von Hustle is talking about right now. But maybe you can give us, like, a short summary, like, what the stuff you just mentioned. Can you give an overview what is the Dookey Dash?
Dookey Dash is a game that the Bored Ape Yacht Club has created for members to play, and they're saying it's a skill-based mint. I don't know what it is more than a frustrating game where I'm running into Christmas trees and cows, but I'm having fun. And so far, every airdrop they've ever given us has been tremendously valuable.
Yeah.
They gave us tickets to play this game, and each of those tickets is an NFT, which has ranged in anywhere between 2 and 7 Ether in value.
Yeah.
Just as a gift from the Bored Ape Yacht Club. So
I by the way, for folks listening, I did get these sewer passes for my Bored Apes. I did not know what they were going to be. Given mom life, I'm just like, I don't have the bandwidth to learn. I never sell anything. I usually wait to even mint these things. Like, they're free, but you still actively go in and mint them. And this time I was like, it's a game. I don't think I'm going to be into it. I don't know what it's going to be. And I finally sold them, like, fairly early, and now I regret it.
Oh, you claimed and sold?
I did.
Oh.
I know. And you know what? Normally I do the complete opposite. And I was, just to your point though, I sat there, I knew I had some things coming up in the week ahead, and it wasn't going to be something I was going to be able to follow and pay attention to and map. And I was just like, you know what? I'm getting it out of my brain. I'm just going to list them. And I did, and they sold. And whether or not it was the right decision, I did profit. So that's good.
That's a major win.
Yeah. And I haven't really done much of that, despite having a pretty decent bag of NFTs because I never sell. And so I just kind of told myself it doesn't matter where it goes. It's still hurt. And I've actually actively avoided looking at where the values are.
Yeah.
But I've been hearing rumors. But anyway, we don't need to go too deep into that. But I think sometimes we mention things on the show and our audience might not know what it is. So it gives a little context as to, where the space is going. And we do know that anytime Yuga does something, it adds a lot of excitement and almost curiosity and intrigue. But that might lead us a little bit to, why don't you tell us some of the content that you are actively creating and the things that you do in your shows and the things that you're working on?
Yeah, I'm having a lot of fun with augmented reality right now and using a filter that is my Bored Ape. So I've created The Boring Show, which is the show you were on. Back in the day, that was a static show. Now I'm transitioning to a more reality-based show with the augmented reality. I've started a small show for fun called Swamp News, where Jason the Ape is a reporter of activities in the swamp. I think that'll be fun in the future. I am currently part of the Half-Baked team as the Cannabis Consigliere. And that's been a really fun project. We're actually using IP for our Bored Apes and our mutants and our dogs and our codas on various sorts of packaging. So that's going to be awesome. And then on top of that, I have a show with one of my best friends, my brother on the blockchain, who I gifted the Bored Ape to. We host a show every Thursday at 11 a.m. called Other Space FM, where we share our passion for the Otherside Metaverse.
Yeah. Tell us, what is the Otherside Metaverse? Many people may not know.
Sure. Otherside Metaverse is the metaverse created by Yuga Labs, which are the Bored Apes. And this is kind of the grand vision, their big play that will be able to harness all of these different communities and allow us the place to interact, play games, create economy, create all kinds of new opportunities for ourselves. So I love it. I'm very excited, and I own quite a bit of the metaverse land. So I'm looking forward to building.
Very cool. So first of all, so I'm so pumped to hear about your evolution of the Boring Show. So I'm excited to stay tuned for that. And I think, we can talk about a few things here, but I don't want to skip over this use of intellectual property. We've talked about it a bit on the show, probably not nearly as much as one like you yourself might expect, given it's an area of interest for me. And you're actually one of the people I love kind of, shooting the shit with when it comes to the IP stuff, especially with the Bored Apes. So just as a reminder, a refresher to our audience, if you own a Bored Ape in the Bored Ape Yacht Club NFT collection, along with, a number of other NFT projects that offer IP, you do have exclusive commercial use of the IP. And my friend here is one of the first to really trailblaze in this area and do some cool things. So maybe I think when people still to this day think about NFTs kind of from a very pop culture narrative, they just think about these like ape JPEGs that cost a lot of money and you own one and it might offer you some bragging rights. But I think you and me and some others have really seen that like there's things you can actually do with this intellectual property if it matters. So tell me about some of the things you worked on with your ape.
I love that we're talking about this because the usage of intellectual property is something that I was very eager to understand at the beginning when it was given to us, because I did not understand what it meant at all. But I understood that was a selling point. So after figuring it out, after a lot of people relating it to owning a Mickey Mouse type of character, it kind of dawned on me that these characters are meant to be used in any way that we want. So the first thing I thought to do was create a talk show with my Bored Ape called The Boring Show, and it was an ape-to-ape talk show. And the big selling point was if someone came on, they were not meant to be themselves. They were meant to play the character, to show that use case of IP, right? And now, as more time has gone on, I've found different companies to work with. I may have had one of the biggest potential successes and immediate failures with IP, regarding the G Fuel fiasco that happened back in the day. But
Sure. Yeah.
that's to say that there's a lot of learning in this space when it comes to IP, right? And I'll reference that G Fuel thing. So
Thank you. I was going to ask.
yeah, G Fuel is an energy drink company, and there was a short period of time where we had licensed my ape to this company. Now, it is one of the largest energy drink companies in the entire world. The gaming community, video gaming community, did not respond well to the NFT project, and it was yanked.
Gotcha.
It was a major bummer because that whole NFT project was built around the IP of my Bored Ape. So that would have really put my Bored Ape, that IP, in front of all this giant new audience, right? So now you're like, okay, why is that important? Because you realize that there's companies that want to make these moves, but they're not quite ready yet. So now it's taught me that it's upon myself to take action. How can I create the value of my IP myself? Well, guess what? I have a computer, I have an iPhone, I have all these cool apps inside of it. So I figured out how to create a cartoon with my ape. I figured out how to create a podcast with my ape. I figured out how to call strangers and ask them to come on my show and talk as their ape. With that, it's turned into, now I have a champagne company right now, today, asking me to license my ape and my mutant to put it on their bottles. I have vodka just to my left with my Bored Ape on it, and different products that are coming out into the world. Next month in February, I'll have marijuana vape dispensers coming to Los Angeles with my M2 Bored Ape mutant on it. So they're paying me to use that image on packaging. So as they sell that product, I'll be making passive income. That's the goal of these assets, is to create opportunity to make passive income off of them while also creating value in this asset.
Yeah. I'd love to know your thoughts, especially in today's environment. Like, how much responsibility do you put on the team leading the NFT collection versus, say, the decentralized group of owners to really enhance what that intellectual property means in culture? Do you see as one having more responsibility than the other? Or I just would love to know your thinking around this
That's
topic.
a fantastic question, and something I've been thinking a lot about lately, as we see Gordon Goner stepping away from the Bored Ape team for health reasons, and he was, to be honest, he was a big force in the ecosystem that I really admired and looked up to. And so as he's stepping away, I start to think, is this a club that not that I still want to be a part of, but like, where is the value set for me? And you're absolutely right. Like, is it on the founders to create the value of the club, or is it on the community to create the value of the club? And I think it's both simultaneously, right? Like the owners have to pull their weight and make the company worthwhile. Like, let's think of it as an analogy of a basketball team.
Yeah.
You need the owners, but you also need the players, right? Like, let's say the Lakers, Jenny Buss needs to be there to pay the checks for all those players and to kind of put that team together and create that vision. But she's not the one out there dribbling the ball and playing the game. That's the players. So for us, like, we're the Bored Apes, we're the community. We need to show value and create opportunity for other people to find opportunity here, right? Like, I know I'm using that word a lot, but it's the reality, is like, we have been gifted, in a sense, life-changing opportunities with these NFTs. And it's really up to some of us now to take that blessing that we have and kind of pay it forward through other projects that we can create now. But the founders also have to create value consistently. Otherwise, you end up being the Clippers, not the Lakers.
I'm not a big basketball viewer, but I get the general
Yeah, you
sense
get
of
it.
what you're saying.
Nobody wants to be the Clippers. You know that much.
Okay, good to know. So I would love to know, just, is there anyone out there that you would reference that's doing a really wonderful job, like getting creative with their IP, like whether it's a regular person who's just done some really, really cool stuff, all the way to a business owner, all the way to like a celebrity?
I mean, it's kind of funny that we're talking about this because I was talking about this exact topic with my girlfriend this morning is who, and I think it was mainly because I was excited to talk to you again. And I was saying, who is someone who's been around building their ape for ape's sake and who's been building around themselves as an ape owner? So I can think of yourself actually as someone who I look up to in the space, like with your cereal deal and, you know, seeing you really push Board Becky forward as a character. I think that's super important. I think Sarah Stargirl is someone else. I admire how she's used her IP in the space and to the point where even the Bored Apes gave her love and put her salon studio that she created in their sandbox metaverse build. Like that's an
Yeah, that's cool.
amazing accomplishment. I think of Metamori, who is a Bored Ape who does VTubing with his ape. You know, the first Bored Ape VTuber. And that's
What's a V2? And why do I not know this term?
it's like I learned it only because of him. It's like a full body augmented reality type of thing.
Cool.
Jenkins obviously is one of my favorites. But there's not really a lot, to be honest with you. And I think that really just allows people to think that there's opportunity for them to be that, right? I would put myself in that category as that my ape has a lot of narrative and lore built into it. I can't think of many others right now.
If you were starting today, like let's just say you scored and got the Bored Ape of choice for a good price, and you're like, I'm buying this because I want to get creative with IP. Like, how would you start? How would you start thinking about what might be the possibilities ahead of you?
I think one of the things that I would think about is how do I want to form this character? Do I want to form it in a way that it is yourself? It's a reflection of yourself, which is what I did with my character. Or do you want to create this lore that can become bigger than life where other people can help you execute that vision the way that Jenkins is doing it with his team that creates that story?
Yeah.
How hands-on do you want to be with that is more kind of the thought process.
Yeah, that's a good point. And it's funny because for myself, I obviously when I first started playing around with Board Becky, it was really out of fun and I didn't fully understand what might be able to be done. And quite honestly, I think I've neglected a lot of opportunities just because I've ended up, having other things on the go, but I am planning to do more. And originally I thought Becky would be this certain character and she's become closer and closer to like Ashley. So I've really I don't have the answer just yet, but I am starting to think about how do I really want to define this. And it's funny, a year and a half later or longer, I'm just feeling like it's still the beginning. Like there's even if I need to rewind and redefine my character a little bit, there might be an opportunity for that because most people are still they haven't been introduced to a lot of these like the characters and the idea and the intellectual property. But just FYI for our audience, Jenkins the Valet, we won't talk much about who that is right now, but he is coming on the podcast soon, so you can learn more about that journey. So let's switch gears a little. I know you're really into the metaverse and thinking about like this yoga environment, for example. When you're having your regular discussions like on your show, what things are you mostly thinking about? What are you mostly talking about? What really excites you with
So
that?
I'll preface with this. The name Baron von Hustle was given to me by the Twitter community. Baron for the fact that I own a lot of metaverse lands. And that was hilarious to me. So it just became the name. I think metaverse is going to be one of the most important components of the next decade. Easily, it's going to be the newer form of how we communicate and interact with our friends and create new, social dynamics. We're going to create new economic opportunities for ourselves, all by playing a video game, either through your phone, your iPad, or your computer, or whatever else. I myself think that the Otherside Metaverse is kind of a sleeping giant right now. So I have been buying a lot of it. and I plan on building an entire, I was saying this earlier, my Disneyland. And it's going to be Jason the Ape's magical kingdom in a sense, right? So think of all the Otherside deeds in my mind as Disneyland. And Jason the Ape is going to be Mickey Mouse running around there, and hopefully selling T-shirts and selling all kinds of digital wearables where either people can buy a real T-shirt and have it drop shipped to them, where all of a sudden Printful makes it and ships it to them wherever they are in the world, or they can buy a digital wearable, or both, and they can wear the real shirt that their digital assets wearing. That'd be pretty cool.
So cool. Okay, so full disclosure, I own a few other deeds myself. These were simply the ones that I received as Bored Ape owner. I again have not traded. I've just held. And of course, do your own research, not financial advice, et cetera, et cetera. But we haven't spoken much about why this metaverse might be different, besides, of course, Yuga being, behind it. But as I'm hearing you talk about this, you're talking really about building out what your lands are going to be and how people might interact with them. So for our audience who's maybe new to the idea of metaverse or more has thought of it as games they can enter into, can you explain a little bit about the flip side of being almost like a builder, someone who's purchased these spaces and are thinking of it as a builder? Like, what are the opportunities beyond what you've just said? Can someone go in there and really build whatever they want?
Yeah. I mean, I think a lot of people have used a metaverse to some degree already. They just may not understand it in the way that we articulate it. When we talk about a metaverse, it's the same thing as Roblox. It's the same thing as Twitter Spaces, right? A metaverse is kind of like a location that you guys can share without having to physically be there. And in this new world, especially this particular Otherside world, there's going to be opportunity for people to create games, to create commerce, to create businesses, where they get paid in actual money for things. And this is not brand new, right? This has existed in other metaverses before, but none have stood out as that unicorn, that one successful giant metaverse that everyone goes to. And Yuga kind of has the most money in the NFT ecosystem, and they have a lot of talent, which means they have potential to be that. So for a lot of people, they want to come in. You may not think maybe you can't buy a deed for $3,000, but you may be really good at building houses in Roblox and Minecraft. Well, guess what? There's going to be parallels where you could probably figure out how to build a house or a structure or something in that metaverse and then sell it. So the first metaverse I was ever in, I hired a guy off of Twitter to build a building for me, the actual hustle house. And I paid him $1,000 to go into Minecraft and build a building for me. And I think he was 17 years old. And that kind of changed his dynamic because now he was a professional gamer, right? Like he got paid to professionally play a game. That's going to open a lot of doors for people.
That's really cool. And just to be clear, like you do not need a Bored Ape to own a deed in this metaverse. That was just how like they did. You distribute to the apes, and then of course went to public market beyond that. And I think I think people are still wrapping their head around what can be done. Like I love this idea of your studio being in this space. Like we've talked about when the time is right, probably hosting the podcast in the metaverse. I think we're still finding that the adoption hasn't quite gotten there just yet, and like some of the active metaverses that we know are still a little clunky, but it's getting there. How do you stay on top of like the innovation and the tech advancements and to know like where the opportunities are?
That's tough. There's only so much mental bandwidth you have. And I really think the most important part is to find projects you believe in so that you can give yourself the luxury of full attention, right? When during the bull market, we were all looking at 30 different projects every day, and I've whittled it down to 4 projects that I really believe in. And that allows me the opportunity to stay on top of it because if these projects are innovating at the speed which they say they are, you need to pay attention, because you could miss a week and miss something really important. And so I would say really make sure to limit your bandwidth. Really just focus on 2 or 3 projects, maybe even just one that you just really align with and you see that value, and go from there. Because if you're trying to look at everything at all times, you're going to miss a lot.
How do you feel? You must get some pressure. Like, for those listening, you know, the Hustle House is a name that a lot of people want to talk to and engage and be involved in like conversations, and whether or not they're looking for advisor or just like you to like shill something for them. How do you navigate that? Like how do you find you're able to do that in a sustainable way, in a way that you're happy with?
The most honest thing I could say is to be genuine with people, with what your intentions are, and don't beat around the bush. Don't be afraid to ask people, what is it that you want? And let them know what your intentions are as well. I think a lot of people get caught up in thinking they have to say yes to people, when the reality is you don't have to say yes to anyone unless you feel comfortable with that experience. So if a project proposes something to you, it's okay for you to say no 10 times, right? Like it's okay for you to not take every opportunity that falls on your lap, because that's not always the best look. Like I think of this story that once upon a time an actor didn't want to take the diarrhea role, and it's because he didn't want to be known as the diarrhea guy. So think of that when you work with projects, is you don't want to be associated with a project that stinks. There might be things that don't work out, and that's not to say you didn't try your best, but you don't need to take everything that falls on your lap. So patience, conversation, and be open with people and genuine. It goes a long way.
Do you find that Twitter is still, and I say still almost like I'm making the assumption that it was, but do you think Twitter is still the primary resource or place to learn about the things that are going on, particularly in the NFT environment?
Yeah, it is. And
Yeah.
it's weird because the tides have changed, the communities have changed, the energy has changed. There's a lot of people who are going for, shock and awe versus actual value, where people say, this is what's happening in the community. What they really mean is these are things that are happening within the Twitter user community, not the NFT community. So it's good to be informed of what's happening. It's good to have a pulse on what's happening through Twitter, but don't fixate on it.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we've been giving so much thought to just like as we develop the brand of Fame Lady Squad, also just wanting to make sure that we're not living just in one place and finding where other people might be. Now, it might be different when we think of like a more female dominant targeted like a demographic. I'm not sure. But it's definitely, as the algorithm on Twitter has changed, I'm not trying to like piss on Twitter or whatever. It's just been like there's so much going on, and we're trying to zoom out a little bit of like, the engagement. A lot of people right now during the bear market are spending their time with their families and probably their work more than they were a year ago. Like and so just to your point, the sentiment feels a little different, or the energy feels a little different. And it's maybe my question is like, how do you kind of center yourself in a way that keeps you feel like your why and why you're showing up, and not getting, say, defeated during this time, not so much related to your bags and your trading and whatever, but more so just around that sense of like community, but also connection, maybe
I feel like
to the space?
you were listening to my conversation earlier with my girlfriend, because this is all things I was talking about today. Because it was in my mind. I think when people ask me what is it that I want to do in this space now that I've been around for a while, I want to get back to what brought me here in the beginning, which was being an artist and being creative. My background is in design. Like I have a master's in graphic design. I've spent most of my life studying art. I think that's why I love the appeal of creating, character line with my IP, right? That's art.
Yeah.
What grounds me and what holds me in this space is realizing that when I get stressed, I have the luxury of owning this IP that I can go and play with, and I can go create stories with, and I can get all my creative energy put into that, And I was thinking about it this morning. Like, I have two codas, which are, little characters in the Otherside Metaverse, and I want to use their IP. So now I'm crowdsourcing from my Twitter audience, asking them, what do you guys think we should name them? What would you use the story for? And then I put that out there, see what comes up, and then I take those narratives, find which one appeals to me, and kind of go from there, So
That's awesome. Very cool. Now, we do a little segment here on From the Blockchain. It's pretty new. But what we basically do is we go, and I understand it might even be already cliche, even though it's like 2 months in. But what we go and we ask ChatGPT for a question. Like, we're looking for AI to help support us on the podcast, basically, and just leaning into the tech and innovation that's out there. So I basically asked ChatGPT to come up with a question for someone like you who's been active and visible in Web3 and the NFT space for a number of years, and you've really seen the evolution of the tech and the adoption. And so the question that it asked me to ask you is, what is your vision for the future of Web3 and NFTs? And what steps do you believe need to be taken to ensure this vision becomes a reality?
Wow. Okay. I think my gut instinct right now is to think that there's an opportunity for people to create unicorn style businesses from anywhere in the world that they have access to the internet. And what I mean by unicorn style businesses, I mean, these mega giant companies that will put ripples through the way the world works, right? And I think that the metaverse will allow us, once it's actually the proper metaverse, it'll allow users an experience to create fun, engaging experiences while making money without physically having to be anywhere. Because as we've experienced in the last few years, people don't want to go to their traditional jobs, right? We all had a reset of sorts where we realized, like, grinding 9 to 5 is not the best way to use your time. So if we can figure out a way through NFTs to accomplish a way for people to create income revenue streams passively, that's the future I want to be a part of.
Do you think there's any steps that need to be taken to help bring this vision
a ton.
to reality?
There's going to be a lot of it starts with education. A lot of it starts with engagement. A lot of it starts with purpose and reward, right? Like, people need to be rewarded for their time. Otherwise, they're not going to come do it. They need to have fun. Otherwise, they're not going to come do it. It has to be easy. Otherwise, they're not going to come do it. All of those things have to happen simultaneously. So when we have an app on our phone which allows people to come and play a game, spend real money, and on the other end, an owner is receiving real money passively, that's the future of NFTs, where we all win.
I love that. I actually think you gave us a wonderful answer, and it was very thoughtful.
Oh,
so
thank
you did
you.
a great job. I can't, we've already been about 40 minutes. So we're about done. I wish we could chat more. I know that there will be a day when I see you in person again. And for those listening, the first time I met Baron von Hustle in person was at the very first Bored Ape Yacht Club yacht party, and it was disastrously wonderful for me.
Yeah. that was a historic evening.
It was. I really enjoyed what I can remember of that party. I'll leave it at that for our audience to, like, imagine just how good it might have been in New York. But anyhow, it's always a pleasure. I would love for you to share with our audience before we close, just, where should our audience find you, and what you're working on? Where are the places that they can find and follow you?
The Hustle House on Twitter and YouTube and Instagram will work well for socials. I do 2 weekly shows right now, both on Twitter Spaces. Thursday at 11 a.m. we do Other Space FM, which is the Otherside Metaverse focus show.
And 11 a.m. Pacific?
Pacific Standard Time. Yep.
Yeah.
And then on Sunday, for about 30 weeks so far as of this Sunday, we do something called the Half Baked Sunday Smoke Session, where we talk about IP usage and what that project is creating. And that's also 11 o'clock Pacific Standard Time every Sunday.
Very cool. I can't believe I haven't tuned in. I think I've just been zonked out with motherhood over the last while, but I'm going to make sure to check that out because topic that I know you know well and that I'm very interested in. So that's awesome. We will make sure to include links in the show notes so people can find and follow you. Is there any closing words or anything you wanted to say before we go?
Just thank you so much, man. It's always fun connecting with you. I look forward to having you on Boring Show Season 2 at some point, and I can't wait till we can cross paths in real life again.
Yeah, same here. And I can't wait. I really want to be on the Boring Show again, especially if it's through a more dynamic, with a dynamic presence. I need to see Becky coming to life. That's so
Do you
exciting.
not have an augmented reality head for her?
No, but I've been meaning to do it. But again, this is just one of those things I've continued to put in the parking lot. But I will eventually have one. And I think after we talk, I'm going to follow up with you. How do I get it?
Yeah, I got something lined up for you already.
You're wonderful. All right. That's it, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us, hearing stories from innovators from the blockchain. Thank you for joining us on From the Blockchain. We hope you enjoyed the show. If you have any questions about today's episode, please send us a message so we can answer it. If you want to learn more about Fame Lady Squad or how you can get involved with NFTs, please visit our website or join our growing community on Discord. We genuinely believe we couldn't do the things we do without the support of our community and listeners like you. So thank you. We'll see you again soon.